Okay, we're live. I'd like to introduce you to Justin Herrin, who is with the, just say it.
The New Hampshire user group. Yeah, and I'm from Manchester, New Hampshire area. I'm very excited to be welcome back and speaking at this conference for the second year in a row.
And he's going to be talking about CCKs, which is Content Construction Kits.
You just gave me.
Voila.
Okay.
There we go.
All right, yes, well, welcome everybody, and this is awesome. Overflow seating in the back there, so this is great. Well, yes, as Diane said, today we're going to be talking about comparing CCKs. We're going to kind of go through a quick overview of some of the big four that are out there today. But before we get started, I just want to reiterate the fact that why we are all here today, and that's because Joomla is awesome. Right? I think Diane mentioned it maybe yesterday, Matt mentioned it yesterday, Jen this morning. And if you guys still don't believe us, maybe Mr. Stephen Colbert can help you do that. I was absolutely shocked when I saw that on his show one night, or when I photoshopped it in there. But, right, so Joomla is awesome, but there's always going to be a but, right? And what's that but? More is often needed. Okay, wow. Okay, yes, come on in, guys. So yes, more is often needed. What do I mean by that? Well, sometimes we run into this problem, and that problem is lack of customization. Okay, right? We have our title field. We can set an alias or set an author, maybe change the creation date. Then we get down into the text area of our new Joomla article, and we throw in some content, make a few things bold, bulleted list, picture, but that's about it. Right? Simply put, more power is needed sometimes. This poor kid, he can't lift up all that weight. He just needs more power. So what can I do? Do I go to switch to Drupal? No, we don't need to do that. All we have to do is just go visit the official Joomla extensions directory, right, the JED. Now last time I visited the JED, which was a couple weeks ago, they had just surpassed the 9,200 extension mark. Wow, that is a lot, is it not? Thankfully, the fine folks over at the JED that volunteer and work there have categorized all these extensions for us. And in our case, there's this lovely category called content construction. And that's where we're going to be, that is actually falls under the authoring and content primary category. And that's where we're going to be focusing today. So let's go ahead and answer the simple question of what is a CCK exactly? Diane mentioned it's content construction kit, but what do they do? Anybody want to throw in an answer? No? Yes? Yes. Sorry, what was that?
They extend the Joomla framework?
Yes. And how do they do that? Or what can they do with that?
Extend it.
Extend it, okay. Well, so when they extend, right, what do? They add additional fields and options for your content items. Right? They allow you to move beyond the simple title and text limitations, maybe, provided by the Joomla core. Okay? So basically, a CCK is a support tool for allowing you to build customized content for your CMS. Now, whether that's Joomla, Drupal, or WordPress, or any other CMS that's out there, CCKs allow you to move beyond the limitations of the core software. Okay? So from the ground up, couldn't you consider them as building blocks? You know, Legos when we were all kids, or Lincoln Logs. Am I dating myself when I say that I remember that? Right, so we have all these colorful pieces and we throw them all together and we end up with a big, nice fire truck or police station or whatever. All right, so today, like I said, we're going to be talking about some of the big four CCKs for Joomla. So we have K2, which is developed by our friends over in Greece. We have Zoo, developed by our friends at Utheme, and some of you guys may be using their templates out there. Okay, then we have Seblod, developed by our friends in France. And we have kind of a new kid on the block called Content Builder, developed by our friends at Crosstick. Okay, maybe if you guys use Breezing Forms, you should be familiar with that. Okay. So we've gone out to the JED. We've done the research, because that's what we're going to do first. We're going to read the user reviews, look at the ratings, etc. See what works. We've done the research and the homework. And now we're ready to install, and thankfully, installation of all these CCKs is very easy. Just like any other extension, go through the extension manager, and then when you're done, you end up with a components drop-down list that looks something similar to that, if, of course, you've turned off all the other core components. But And don't worry about the URLs. This stuff will be available on the website probably tomorrow or sometime. All right. So what's the big difference between these four? Besides version numbers and titles, obviously. Well, a quick overview of these four is a simple pairing of these. So over here on the left, we have K2 and Zoo. And these guys are considered Joomla core replacements. Now, what do I say when I mean when I say replacements? Right. So these guys have their own category system, and they have their own items for content. So you're not using Joomla articles, and you're not using Joomla categories. Instead, you're using K2 and Zoo categories and K2 and Zoo items to build your website. Okay, so that's why they're replacements. All right. Now, when you install K2 and Zoo, they come with a load of modules and plugins as well to help you build your website, display like the latest items or categories, etc. Now, on the right, we have Seblod and Content Builder, and these guys are considered Joomla core enhancements. So they actually utilize Joomla's core category system, as well as the articles system to make your content. Okay. So let's actually jump into now some more of the more fine-tuning comparisons here. We're going to look ahead, and the big requirement for this presentation today was your extension had to be Joomla 2.5 ready. So if anybody read the program this morning or checked out the website the other day, you may be asking, well, Justin, where's FlexiContent? Right? Anybody here was really looking forward to FlexiContent? I'm sorry about that. Oh. Because FlexiContent is not Joomla 2.5 ready, I made the decision to exclude them from this presentation. But I hear that's coming soon, hopefully. Anyways, all four of these guys are actively developed, which is very important because when we're going to switch our website to be heavily relying on a CCK, we want to make sure that the developers aren't going to just fall off the face of the earth and go away and not update their websites and update their software. And all four of these also have additional third-party extensions available on the JED, okay, which is pretty cool. Now these are modules or plugins developed by folks like you and I and recontributed back to the CCK developers and the community in general. All right, so let's shift on to some of the more powerful features that each one of these offers. Now, ACL, right? We were all introduced to ACL in 1.6, 1.7, 2.5. Some people may have had better luck than others with that. But Zoo, Seblod, and Content Builder will utilize the Joomla core ACL system. That's why they get the little logo in there. K2, on the other hand, has their own ACL system built right into their CCK. Now, back in the Joomla 1.5 days, that was a pretty big deal because it allowed you to create your own ACL as you needed to on the fly. Category systems, of course, I mentioned earlier, K2 and Zoo, they come packaged with their own. And Seblod and Content Builder will use the core category system. All right, I also threw in this multiple, or items in multiple categories, because that's a question I get asked all the time. Why can't I assign one item into multiple categories, or how can I work around this and that? Well, if you have Zoo, you can do it, and they do it pretty well. You create an item, assign it to a primary category, and then before you know it, you can set secondary categories as well. K2 and the others, not yet, but there are ways to get around that. All right. So front-end submissions and front-end editing, those are pretty important, especially for passing our sites on to clients and having them manage it and update it, or if we're relying on community contributions to our website. Folks can do that, no problem in all four of these. And the other question I get asked all the time is, our friends at WordPress do content versioning so well. When is Joomla going to do it? I don't know. Right? Maybe that's a question for this afternoon when Andy talks about 3.0. Right? Oh, she is back there. Yes. Okay. All right. So let's move on to some other powerful features here. Commenting systems. Of course, K2 and Zoo, again, because they're core replacements, they come packaged with these commenting systems as well as Seblod, I put in the dashes for Seblod there, and I put those in because when you install Seblod, you don't get those out of the box. However, there is documentation on how to build them yourself if you need to. Okay. Content builder, I tried to build a commenting system. Didn't work out for me. If there's a way to do it, we'll change that red X to a green check, but it wasn't something that I found. Tagging system, yes, for content builder, as well as K2 and Zoo. File attachments, right? You want to create an item or a piece of content, you want to attach a PDF or a zip file to it. No problem with all four of these guys, no problem at all. All right, so how about moving on to some of the standard CCK features? Things like text fields, text areas, drop-down lists, images, file uploads, radio buttons here. All four, no problem at all. Those are in K2 known as extra fields, Zoom known as fields, Seblod fields, etc. I also threw in social media integration because most websites these days have that, or websites that don't are looking to get into that. Zoo and K2 will do that right out of the box, no problem. And Seblod Content Builder, you're going to need to go out and find a third-party extension. Okay.
Just excuse me, when you talk about social media, which applications specifically? Is there kind of a laundry list there?
Yep, I know with the new version of K2, it's the big three. It's Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. With Zoo, I believe it was, well, definitely Facebook and Twitter. I'm not sure what some of the other ones were. But older versions of K2 had things like Stumble Upon and whatever some of the other
LinkedIn
websites are.
Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Thank you.
So now when it comes time to actually import our data into our CCK, because it's a lot, it can be a lot of work, especially if you're not starting from the ground up. So if you actually have a Joomla website with categories and articles built already, Zoo and K2 will come in and allow for a nice button to be clicked in the back end that says import Joomla content. When you do that, all your Joomla categories become Zoo or K2 categories, and same thing with the articles. Seblod and Content Builder, I did not see a lovely import button, but I do know, oh, I'm sorry, we're not importing the Joomla elements. And why are we not doing that? Because these Seblod and Content Builder are Joomla core enhancements. So we're not actually going to need to import Joomla elements, okay? In terms of CSV or XML importing of, like let's say we had our WordPress blog, or we had some other collection of states or attendees or something, we can go ahead and import those in. No problem with all four of these. The only little glitch is Seblod requires a second component that is in beta right now. So I did throw it in there, but threw in that little beta tag. Now exporting, we want to go from our K2 items or Zoo items, we want to go out to a CSV file. Zoo allows that, as does Content Builder, and they both do it pretty well. K2 and Seblod, I didn't see those buttons in there. Okay, and now when I made this slide here, this was looking for buttons in the Joomla backend to do this. Okay, because we can of course go and do all these things through something like PHPMyAdmin or any other database administration tool. We can accomplish those. But I was looking for the quick, simple, easy, user-friendly button in the backend. Okay. So now we're going to kind of shift gears to something a little, actually maybe everybody wouldn't need this part, but I thought it was pretty cool. How about some e-commerce integration? Has anybody ever tried to use Virtumart before? Okay, and have you guys found Virtumart to be a little rough around the edges when it comes to displaying and templating?
Yep.
Yes, okay. Well, so thankfully K2 handles templating very well, very easily. Okay, and so they teamed up and created this lovely little thing in the middle called K2 Mart. And what K2 Mart allows you to do is you can now stylize your products through K2 and add the add to cart buttons or quantity buttons with K2 Mart, and then still sell the products themselves and go through the credit card processing, and shipping and billing and all that through Virtumart. So it takes care of that headache, if you will, of stylizing your Virtumart items. Now, not to be outdone by the competitor, Zoo teamed up with Tienda and did the same exact thing. You can now stylize and display your Tienda shopping items through your Zoo items and have TN to handle the heavy lifting of credit card processing, etc. Okay. All right, so I kind of briefly mentioned some of the templating options. And let's go ahead and talk about template overrides and template layouts or alternate layouts. Right, and template overrides, this is of course going to reside in your HTML folder inside your Joomla sites template folder, correct? And the template layouts are something pretty cool because back in the 1.5 days, when K2 released it, made it so much easier. You just create a folder, throw in some PHP files in there, and then you can assign that folder to your K2 categories. So you can stylize your website on a per category basis. Okay. Zoo will do the same thing. Seblod and Content Builder also will allow for you to use the template layouts and template overrides in the Joomla template directory. Okay. So let's kind of talk a little bit about the workflow involved. The workflow for K2 starts when you create extra fields, groups, and then extra fields. Okay, the extra fields are going to be the things like the text area, the text field, the drop-down list, etc. Right? Then if you choose to, you can create your own templates, and then you can create your categories. The categories are really the key thing here, as well as the items, of course. But when you create your categories, there's a parameter in there that says assign this extra field group to the items within this category. Or when I create this category, there's an option that says display the items of this category using the template that you built. Okay? Then of course you throw in your items, create some menu links, and away you go. Now, Zoo, on the other hand, is a little bit more complicated, a little bit more developer friendly, where you have to create what's called an app at the beginning. And that contains your fields and your types within that app. Okay? So the example I like to use is we'll create a blog app. Okay, now if you download the free version of Zoo, the blog app is there for you already. All right, so we're going to have this blog app up at the top, and then we're going to create instances of that app. Okay, so let's say, for example, I want to create a portfolio or a personal app, we'll say, or a personal blog, and then I want to create a work blog. Then, if we choose to, we can create some templates to how we're going to lay out and show these items in our blog. Okay. Then we create the categories of those blogs. So for my personal blog, I'm going to do travel and photography. For my work blog, I'm going to do minutes and meetings or whatever. Then, of course, you create your items, assign them to those categories, menu links, and all that, and you're ready to go. Okay. So that one's a little bit more tricky. Now, when we get on to Seblod and Content Builder, again, these guys are different because they're the Joomla core enhancements. Okay. So what they do, create an app folder similar to the app that we did in Zoo. Then we're going to create fields and storage. Now, this is where the real cool power of Seblod comes into play, because we can tell the component where we want to store all the extra field data that we're going to enter into our items. We can have it be attached to the content table that's already there in Joomla, or we can have Seblod create a separate table for us in our database to store whatever additional fields we're looking to store. So that can come in handy when, in the future, you want to create modules or even additional components that reference those brand new tables that you built. So it's pretty cool.
Which is more efficient?
Which is more efficient? I think it would really depend on the project or the type of job you're looking to complete. There's definitely advantages to having a separate table be created, because then you can reference that separate table at any other time you want. Right? Then, of course, we're going to create our content types, views and templates to display everything. Then we have our items, menu links, and away we go with Seblod. Okay. Content Builder, we're going to start off with the storage, the data storage. Where are we going to put all these items, the extra fields data? Then we're going to create our views, which is, again, how we view the items in the back end, in the front end, and then in the front end when we're editing those in the front end. Then we're going to create our fields, text areas, drop-down lists, radio buttons, etc. Then throw them into the content template, create our items, and away we go. Now, that can be a little daunting. I do understand it is confusing. Thankfully, there is all this documentation available for us to go out. Right? We have, whether you want web docs, wikis, message forms to communicate and talk with each other, video tutorials, whether they're provided by the developer or by folks like you and I, YouTube galore. Paid support for K2 is available through some third-party companies. Zoo paid support you can get right from the developers, from UThink. Okay, I believe they have some subscription plans for X amount of months. Seblod, I didn't see any paid support options, not from the developers or third-party companies. If you guys know of any, yes.
Actually, with Content Builder, could we talk about Content Builder?
Well, we can jump to that.
Content Builder, you're eligible for support if you have a subscription to Breezing Freelance.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. Yep. So they get the check on the bottom down there, right through the cross-tech company. Yep. Right through the developers. All right. So we can now go home and rest easy to know that all this documentation is available for us. Now, kind of the million-dollar question of the day: WWJD. What would Justin do? Right? What would I do? Well, I'm going to keep in mind that the 90-10 rule and all these CCKs. Are you familiar with the 90-10 rule? Right. So the 90% of all users are only going to use 10% of the features. And of course, each user is going to use a different 10% of the features. So I guess the general thing would be like, it depends on the project you're looking to do. All right. But basically, I would say that K2 would be more so for beginners. I would say that. I would be comfortable saying that. It has a look and feel that we're all used to with the Joomla core. The categories, the items are all the same, just like we're familiar with Joomla categories and articles. All right. And it's pretty quick and simple to set up. You don't have to go through that process of creating the templates. You can use the default stuff in there. But the templating feature is very powerful and allows for lots of customization of how you want to arrange your items and even the extra fields within those items. Zoo, as I mentioned earlier, was kind of more so for developers looking to build these apps. There's a lot of customization with Zoo, and with that comes a big learning curve to hurdle over. Okay, Seblod, I would say without a doubt, Seblod had the most customization, parameters, and settings to filter through out of all four of these. It was very daunting at times to look through Seblod. Thankfully, there's the good documentation. I was able to follow through with most of it. But without a doubt, I would say Seblod is more so for the advanced user, those guys looking to create components without even touching a line of PHP code. Because that's what you can pretty much do with Seblod there. You can create your own components. Right. Again, of course, with all the settings and the workflow that's involved with that, there is a big learning curve, just like with Zoo. Don't get frustrated, hang in there, you'll get through it. Content Builder, I would say Content Builder is for intermediate users, say. There's lots of options, again, learning curve associated with that. The workflow with Content Builder could be better. And I have a feeling that it's going to get better with new future releases of the software. Because again, this guy has just been around since September, so he's still kind of new on the. All right. Anybody have any questions about those? Quick before we move on. That was not.
It's empty? Yeah, it's
Okay.
empty.
Yes. Sorry.
Just to go back to the relationship between the extra fields and like the templates categories things. My impression is, so it seemed like with K2, those fields were like really attached to the templates, and the way you described it, like you apply these extra fields to this category.
Yes, they're tied to the category, and then therefore they're tied to the items that are within that category. You could use K2 without doing any extra fields at all. You could use K2 and the templates without any extra fields.
It was Zoo that they were really much more separate than that. seen. Like, I'm trying to think of a situation where you've got some content type that needs extra fields, but you might want to use that content type in multiple different places, so that you can't think like it's not in this category, it doesn't go in that template. That it's you know, I'm like kind of lucky I'm only responsible for one site, but it's a big sprawling site with a million kinds of things, and we have a lot of custom components that we really just write so we can make an extra table with extra fields. And so I'm trying to do like how these things would fit in. So like with Zoo, maybe like that. You know, if you have something, you know, there's a museum website, so we've got like, you know, an art object and it needs these fields. But we want to be able to drop that in different places, in different categories. That's more what Zoo is aiming at.
Well, Zoo was the only one that had the green check for one item in multiple categories. So if you're looking for that, then definitely. But if you guys are already building your own components,
Yeah, I don't want to do that anymore.
oh, you don't? Okay. I don't want to. You're fretting the.
But we use categories for navigation. You know, we've got maybe inappropriately, but like all our categorization is tied with our menus and everything. So but you know, might have a content type. Like it's right with the blog. Like we got a blog that I'm going to put in this category, and an identically functioning blog I'm going to put in this other category. So in that sense, they're not those things aren't connected the way they would be with K2.
Well, so on the per item basis or category basis? I did use Zoo with the blog example of the Zoo app.
I guess on the per instance basis, which is the way that you describe it.
Per instance, right. Well, because we had the app at the top,
Right.
and then we had the instances of that app. So you could create I think some of the examples you get with the paid version of Zoo are a direct business directory, and there's like a cookbook app. So you have all the categories or instances of the cookbook that fall under that. So you could create whatever app you want in Zoo, and then have your instances of that app. I don't know how a museum could use that, but I'm sure there's a way. But I mean, even though I did use the blog example on Zoo, you could do a blog with any one of these four, no problem, or multiple blogs for that matter. You know, with K2, you just go out and create some categories, and of course they have the nested categories. So you call the top level category person blog, work blog, and then do all the categories from there.
But if you had like a non-blog, some non-blog content that you wanted to categorize similarly, then you'd be interested in creating like multiple categories for those different things. It sounds like. Like I've got got a section of the site. Here's the introductory page. It's just a page, and that links out to the blog for this part. And that in one sense, sometimes the word category is it's not really what we mean when we assign these things, but when it was one of the same category, too, something like categories are going to be tied to those extra fields in a way that doesn't help you with.
Right, because actually, you know what? Maybe Ken in the back can help us with. Do you know if you can create one K2 extra field group and assign that to multiple categories?
Can you assign what?
Can you assign one K2 extra field group to multiple categories? I've never tried that,
Go try it.
but
Because I think you create a custom group and then you put in which categories that wants to be organized. You can create a group and fields together and then attach that to different categories.
Yeah, then you have to assign that group to so you can assign a group to multiple categories, but they have to be identical.
right, because obviously,
You can't say that this one can't have this tag. Then you have to make a duplicate group and then have identical except for that one.
Yes.
So that could be a limitation.
Because
Yes.
once you can only assign one group of special fields to a category. So as long as you have two categories that you want exactly identical,
You can assign that same group
yeah.
categories, but if there's anything you want different about them, you have to completely replicate that group
right,
and change it so you have two different.
yes, okay. Now, another thing that K2 can do to kind of hurdle around that one item in multiple categories limitation is you can use tagging. You can tag certain items with certain tags, and then you can do a search or a menu link based on a certain tag. Or you can do a tag cloud or whatever you want to do too. So you might be able to hurdle around all those limitations with K2 or Seblod as well, but probably be very powerful for you guys. Yes, question? Good.
How do they, the four of them, compare as far as popularity of use and perhaps third-party extensions beyond what they do on the box?
Good. Yep. So I would say the ones that are probably the most popular are going to be K2 and Zoo. They've been around the longest, and they have the biggest fan base. They have, separate showcases of websites and communities within the big Joomla community. I would say that the top two there are going to be the more popular ones, and whether that comes with the ease of use of K2 and the developer friendliness of Zoo. And what was the second part? It was the
third-party extensions and plugins for them.
Yes.
Which
Yeah.
have a bigger catalog.
Which, yeah. Unfortunately, I don't know the exact numbers, but there are the separate categories within the JED called K2 specific extensions, Zoo specific extensions. All four of them have those in there. I think the one with the least is going to be Content Builder, strictly because of the age of the component. All right. Well, so what I'm going to do next is going to kind of shift gears a little bit here. And I did mention earlier that FlexiContent should be coming out soon. So we're going to be on the lookout, just like these gentlemen here, for, right? Did people catch that? You guys remember that movie? Yes, a couple? Okay. So FlexiContent for Joomla 2.5 is coming soon, soonish, sometime, hopefully. Don't know when. But another one to keep an eye out for. This one's even newer. Okay, this one's called Fields Attach. It's another new component to the JED. It allows for you to simply create groups of extra fields that you then attach to your core Joomla articles and categories. So it's pretty neat. I did play around with it a little bit, and it's even easier to use than K2. I will risk that right there. In its young stage of life term that this component has had. So I would definitely go ahead and check that one out if you guys have some free time. All right, so next up we're going to kind of cover some general golden rules or some public service announcements that I like to always throw into the end of my presentations here. First thing we're going to remember is to always test our extensions locally first before implementing in a live production environment. Right, just general rule, golden thumb here. We don't want to break anything on our live sites, and we're going to be all mad at K2 for breaking whatever, and now we're not going to use it again. So, great. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to remember to keep our website up to date. Okay, keep the core up to date, keep the third-party extensions up to date. That includes templates, right? Guys, if you have any commercial templates out there, make sure they're up to date. Okay. And a little sidebar of this one is we're going to review the vulnerable extensions list every now and then. How many people have at least seen that list once before? There we go. Nice. Very good. And for those of you that don't know what it is, it's a list of extensions from the JED that for some reason or another have a security concern with them. Okay, so you'd be surprised to see what extensions are on that list or have made it to that list in their previous versions. Some big guys have been there. I believe Admin Tools or Kiva has been there. Maybe K2's been on that one too, Cheat Calendar. So it's always good to kind of check it out, make sure that a extension that you're using on your site isn't vulnerable at this time. Okay. The last little one I like to throw in there is that an untested backup is not a backup. How many people know what I mean when I say that? There we go. Right? Okay. So for those of you that didn't raise your hand, right, we're going to make sure that we test at least a few of our backups that we take, so that when worst case scenario comes, we're not relying on a corrupted backup to fix our site, right? Or we don't have to go back now 2 months because that was the last time we took a good backup. Okay. So now that all those PSAs are out of the way, we're ready to go. Right? Good movie reference again. Okay, we're good to go. I'm going to leave you guys with one final thought, and that's to never stop exploring, because you never know what's going to be around the corner, right? Or down the road, over the bridge, through the trees, and then around the corner. But you guys get the idea, okay? All right, well, that's a wrap. You guys have been great, so thank you. So what I'd like to do now, All right, thanks for coming back. So what I'd like to do now is just kind of throw it out. Let's have a big group discussion. This is going to be a big group discussion here. Yes, way in the back.
One of the things I was looking at this for was at the last place I worked, we had a website where we gave pricing on the website, right? And every year the pricing changes. It goes up by 10% or whatever.
Okay.
The import-export feature, can I like write it down in the CSV file and say, upload pricing and just change all the pricing in one go? Because I don't want to have to go and like have the marketing department go onto the page, backbase, $10 instead of $9. Next one, $10 instead of $9. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
That's what I really looked at it for, to like do mass changes and things like that.
Okay. Now, I mean, there's some other ways you could accomplish that without doing another import over the existing data. You could use a database management tool to do a big find and replace in whatever table you're managing. You could do that. That's a little risky, so we're going to do it locally first, right? Of course. The other thing you could do is, yes, you could create a new Excel spreadsheet, save it as CSV, and then import in using a database tool to handle all that. Yep, no problem. Yep. Any other questions out here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. You might have covered this, and maybe I missed it, but on larger scale sites, what kind of performance implications do CCKs provide? Like, I mean, do they hurt performance? Do they help improve it? Is it extra overhead that we need to avoid when we have high traffic sites, or how's that?
Yeah, there could be. I don't want to pick on K2 here, but I've done a pretty large K2 powered website where we use some template layouts that interact with some of the extra fields that they have. And I do notice that there is a little bit of lagging going on. But again, I mean, that could be it could be a server issue. If you have a good host, you should be all set.
Yeah, we tried. The reason I asked this is because we used Drupal before, and Drupal there's autonomy field and everything else. We noticed we had a site that had like 800 pages, and there were so many custom fields. Like there was something like 300-400 different fields.
Sure.
It just crippled, the load time on the site. So
right.
Is there any limits that you recommend that we should push past these, like a number of different kind of fields, or doesn't really matter?
No, I wouldn't put a limit on stuff.
Okay.
I'd push it to the limit and see what you can do with it. With something like Seblod, where you can have these extra fields be stored in a separate table, you might be better off than having it be attached to the content table, because then that way you're not loading all the other stuff as well. Now, I don't know how the Drupal stuff was working, but was that referencing fields that were in multiple tables, bringing everything together?
Content-wise, when the version we were working on, again, this was like Drupal 6, this is
okay.
back a couple versions, but all the content was in one huge long table, so the lookups were, ridiculously long, because there's records in there. I think they did the whole thing in like 3 tables or something like that. 4 tables.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And can you chime in?
The company that wrote K2, you guys hear me okay over there? The company that wrote K2 is Joomla Works, who has other extensions that they do. And they had built some sites, because they also build sites in Greece, where they're from, based in Athens. And they have some very, very high traffic sites. And I know they modified things, for those special cases. Like I believe one site, they've got load balancers, they've got caching out the log too. I mean, if you enable caching and you do it properly, those lookups happen maybe once every couple of months.
Gotcha.
And so with caching, you can really speed up the site.
Yep, no doubt. And that goes for any Joomla site, not just the CCK powered Joomla site too. Yep. Yes. Yep.
Kind of almost like this plan of having a little magazine article about this. We just did a pretty major conversion from a Drupal site
into Joomla.
Yep.
It's been done before at this scale, and we significantly improved the performance. The site had that same problem, everything's in single table, kind of a complex thing, but the secret to the sauce was K2.
You know what, Christopher, I hope that isn't a little magazine article. I hope it's a pretty in-depth one, because I was at DrupalCon last week, and one of the guys at one of the booths, in a nice, polite way, talking to another guy that I was standing next to, he had a little monitoring system set up in his booth, and it plugged in this guy's site. It didn't come up great, and then he kind of turned his nose up and he said, "Oh, that's right, that's a Joomla website." And it'd be really good, I think, to see something in that magazine article that kind of highlights that in a polite way. That you got a performance.
The name of the site that we just converted is truthout.org. It's actually truthout.org. Check it out. It's now in Joomla. It used to be in Joomla. And it would just totally log down the server and crash when it was in Joomla. We did some optimization to make it a little bit better, but then once it went, once we migrated over to Joomla now, it wasn't an easy or cheap process, but well worth it.
Very good. Yes.
Are you, are you using any caching systems at all, or are you just going straight into Fox?
I'd have to defer to the project manager on that. For our servers. I'm happy to or anybody else.
So you're talking about K2 and Zoo as being Joomla core replacements. And they have their own extensions, obviously. Does that get in the way of compatibility with other third-party extensions if you want to include them? Or if you have something to use, or is it pretty transparent?
No, it's, I mean, you can, because you're, again, probably still displaying those other third-party extensions in their own format.
Okay.
So it's just a menu link.
Oh, okay.
Yep. I mean, I'm thinking to my own experience, I have K2-powered sites that also use custom components. And those are displayed on their own, separate. It's all still within the template, of course.
Sure.
But, yeah, no issues there. Yes?
How does it work if you have a CCK installed on, say, Joomla 1.5 and you need to migrate to Joomla 2.5? Or looking toward the future, like if you had a 2.5 site and you installed a CCK, and then to get to 3.0, would there be difficulty?
Yeah. Well, thankfully, there's the other session this afternoon for migrating right from 1.5 to 2.5. To be honest, I haven't done a migration yet from 1.5 sites. I have to soon, but I haven't yet. And I don't know. I don't know if there's any I would imagine hopefully there'd be an export tool, and then I would turn around and re-import into the new version of 2.5. But I don't know. Anybody have any thoughts on that? Yes.
Use the J upgrade.
Okay.
Only influencers articles and menu items, and then you have to do all your own components modules.
Right. So did you have a K2 powered site or? Okay, so it was just the regular core. Okay, yeah. So that might be a little. Yes, we'll get to Mike in a second.
I actually did that from 1.5 to 2.5 using K2. Roughly about, I want to say, a couple hundred articles, and it was a correct SQL. It was tables to tables, they matched. Not an issue.
Well, there we go.
So you just updated your normal migration,
Normal migration.
and then for the K2 part, you just did that
Just
to
copy.
bring those to
Word.
No, Mike, where did you learn to do that? Or a tutorial somewhere? Wise guy.
I just tried it.
Just tried it? Okay.
I installed it on the new site. We kind of compared the tables. That's the biggest thing when you're doing migrations for any extension. Compare the tables from the old to the new. A lot of times they'll be the same. Sometimes they won't.
Well, one thing to look for is to see if you can use the exact same extension on 1.5 and 2.5, or the different versions. I know with breezing forms, I was able to do the same thing. I just, did a regular upgrade 2.5, and then the using form files, they just did straight SQL export, import.
On the flip side to that, I recently did a site that was using chrono forms. Their 2.5 version, massively different. There, it was like, you couldn't even think
It's
about
a new
it.
extension.
Yeah, so,
You can actually run the old version and the new one side by side, so that different.
right, so compare the database tables. And if it's the same structure, 90% of the time, you're safe.
There was no
But do it
issue.
locally.
Do it, yes,
And
local.
backup.
Yes.
Every step.
Every step, good. Now, there was no issues with the extra fields at all?
Yeah.
No issues with those? Nope, okay. Any other questions at all? Yes?
I had a question about extensions. Somebody in the back asked about K2 extensions and being able to find K2 extensions.
Yep.
If you're running K2, can you use both K2 extensions and Joomla extensions? Or non-K2? Or do they, once you load K2, every extension needs to be able to talk to K2?
Right, yeah. Well, you can install K2 and you can rely on that solely. Or you could install K2, use it for some things, and then still use the core for other things. You know, some websites might just switch to pure K2, and that's fine. Others might use both. And so shouldn't be any conflicts with that stuff. No?
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
I'd like to stress something. If you don't need a CCK, don't use one. If what's built into Joomla works for you, stick with that. You don't need an extra layer of headache out of a conflict if you don't need it.
Yes. Yep.
I'll just add one more thing. On 2.5, they've added a couple of little things that sometimes do what people originally got a CCK for, and that is to add, have it so that you could have, let's say, an image, like on your category blog, and then show a different image or a bigger image when you showed the actual article. The links that you can do, and they've added that to the actual content itself into one. That's the only little kind of thing you need to do. You can just do that.
Yeah, we just need a tagging system and a commenting system, right? That too. Okay. Any other questions at all? How about anybody with the CCK that I did not mention here today, besides FlexiContent? Yes.
Wouldn't Sobi Pro and Sobi wouldn't those be CCKs as well?
Yeah, I think was it last year Laura presented on Sobi Pro. I heard from her that it's kind of slow in the Joomla 2.5 transition, if it's going to happen. I don't know, but I've never used Sobi Pro myself.
Sobi Pro, I've used it. One of the issues that a lot of people had problems with it was there was no way to import CSV files or get base files. They come out with a new with an import plugin. Right now it's beta. I haven't had a chance to try it yet. But I know someone who put together a nice site like a church directory using it because what they were doing was they were importing the data. You know, basically all the churches were importing their own data, and that worked out that way.
Nice.
It seems to be good performance.
Yeah, very good. Just got to get them up to the new version of Joomla, though, right? All right. Well, we got 5 minutes to spare, I think. So, any other last-minute questions? Oh, yeah.
How do you do CSV file if you got comments in your text to begin with?
So how do I use CSV files if we have
Commas.
Oh, commas already.
In the text.
Commas in the text.
limited.
You could, yeah, you can change when you go to do your import, you can change the character of the import. So instead of a comma, you could do like the vertical bar.
The pipe.
The pipe, yeah. Or some other combination of that. Yep. Yes, do you?
What are your thoughts about the mighty extensions?
Mighty extensions?
Well, it's still 1.5.
Oh.
Are they planning to update?
I honestly, I don't know. Mighty extension? Oh, Mighty Reese? Oh. I don't know. I haven't used that one before. Sorry. Yeah. Very good. Alrighty. Yes.
Fields attached and enhancement.
Fields attached would be, yes, categorized as an enhancement, because you're adding those extra fields and the fields groups to your Joomla items, or I'm sorry, Joomla articles. Great. So, and actually, when you on that screenshot I showed earlier about when you add your Joomla article, on the right-hand column, there's all those little parameters and the sliding boxes that move up and down. The last one, I believe, is called metadata options. Right below that would be where the new stuff comes in. And then, so it's just another little box that you click to expand it and you enter in all your fields. Yep. Yes?
Can you use any of the CCKs with Doc Manager?
Like to have some integration between the two?
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't know. Yeah, I haven't tried that before. Doc Manager and CCKs. I don't know. That could be a future testing project right there. Yeah. Any other last minute questions here? All right. Well, thank you again, guys.
Thanks, Justin.